All right, welcome to the Summit Parents Meeting. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us online from all over the world in a room of about 50 parents, grandparents, pastors, youth pastors probably here at the Summit headquarters in Manitou Springs, Colorado. So it's been a real pleasure to have your students with us over the past 12 days, and I just want to kind of get a sense for who's here. So where are you all from? Give me, who came the farthest? Minnesota. All right, we have a couple Minnesotans. Wisconsin. Yeah, that's probably a little further, right, Andrew? All right, where else? South Dakota. Oh, great. How many Coloradans do we have here? About half, maybe half. Okay. We have a Texan. Texas? Oh, yeah. We have more Texans in the room than we have Coloradans. That's great. I love it. That sounds about right to me. I'm really curious how did you find out about Summit? And we have a microphone. I would love for you to just say on the microphone, let's pass it around, maybe a few of us answer the question. How did you hear about Summit? Over here. I'll get this side. You get that side.
Our church hosts the Rethink Conference every year, and so Summit's there, and they advertise, and a lot of the speakers go to both. So that's a great conference to do follow-up with. Allen, Texas.
Excellent. Who's heard of Rethink? Yeah. Oh, wow. Rethink is run by an organization called Stand to Reason. Excellent organization. And basically, I was just telling somebody today, Rethink is like Summit condensed into 2 days. It's the best of Summit in 2 days without small groups. It's like, here, come get sprinkled with all this really good stuff, and then if you want more, come to Summit as kind of your next round. So great job. All right, who else?
We came from Arkansas, and we heard about Summit from some friends who have sent a number of their kids here.
Word of mouth is hands down our number one marketing channel. Yeah, how many of you heard about Summit from friends? Exactly, many of you. That's great. How did you hear about Summit?
About 14 or 15 years ago, my boss at Prestonwood Christian Academy encouraged me to come as an employee and bring a couple others with me to attend Summit for Adults. And so we attended, went back, and I asked him, I said, okay, I know we can't send all of our faculty to Summit every year, but could we create something like that at PCA? So we have, and we do an annual Biblical Worldview Institute at PCA that Dr. Myers has been at many times. So.
We love Prestonwood. Thank you so much for coming. And yes, did you hear that? We have a Summit for adults every year. We have conferences for grown-ups as well. So get on our mailing list. You probably are on our mailing list now that you're a parent. Just don't delete the emails. Check them out because there are good things in there, even for grown-ups. Anybody else want to share? Yes, sir.
We have some friends that are ahead of us. That's a nice way of saying older. And they've been coaching us on our marriage and our kids. They sent their kids to Summit, recommended it. So this is number 3. This is our oldest. He's the first. And we're here with our daughter.
Fantastic.
Our third.
Yeah, fantastic. What have you been hearing? I'm curious. I'm really curious what the conversation is back home. I mean, we hear the conversation on the ground here at Summit, but how many of you, let's just try it like this. How many of you have heard basically nothing back? Yeah, that's usually a good thing, like nothing bad, nothing good. They're just flying under the radar. Yeah, all right. Anything specific you'd want to share with us? What have you heard so far? Great speakers. Mm-hmm. Drinking from a fire hose is what we typically hear, right? All right, come here and take a sip out of this. It is a lot to take in. We'll talk about some specifics here in 1 minute on that. Anybody else care to share? Structure in the dorm room and cleanliness. Every day we have room checks. We have to make a system for getting students to do some of the things that are required if you're going to live in a community with 186 people in close quarters, right? So every day we have room checks. where prizes are awarded to the winners of the cleanliest room, the most most creatively decorated rooms. So we try to have a little fun with it. We also, another thing that we do is we sit the students in the room here in the classroom, oldest to youngest. Maybe we give some of those 16-year-olds something to aspire to if they come back. Like, all right, I'm going to actually be able to, I'm going to get spit on by the speaker here in the front row if I come back in a couple of years. Also, we sit them guy, girl, all the way around. And some people say that's so that we can sort of start off a budding relationship. There are a lot of weddings that have come out of in a relationship that may have started here at Summit. I think it's so that we can get the guys to shower consistently for 2 weeks. But I came in 1992 as a student, and that was probably helpful for me. So I'm going to take us through our history. We're going to drill into a few of the speakers and look at the schedule together. We'll talk about sort of what we hope will happen next. I didn't introduce myself, but I will now. My name is Aaron Atwood. I'm a vice president here at Summit. I'm in charge of our alumni relations and our fundraising here. So what happens with your student after they leave is really the thing that keeps me awake at night and what gets me out of bed in the morning. So we are on the same page. I am praying for your students, and you're praying for your students. And so I hope that we can do that together here, really for the rest of their lives. That's what we're hoping to do. So Andrew's going to put my screen on the big screen. Yes. Love it when technology works like that. And we're going to just talk about sort of what is the history here at Summit. In 1962, our founder, David Noble, wanted to start a summer camp to help students get ready for what they would face when they got out of high school and into college. He was a student at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Where is my Wisconsin family? Yes. Madison, Wisconsin. Liberal or conservative? Yeah. We won't talk about that, they say. We don't want to talk about that. Well, in 1960, 61, things were kind of on fire, literally, at the University of Wisconsin there in Madison's. And Dr. Noble said, I could have easily been one of those Marxist students who were lighting buildings on fire, protesting, had it not been for some people who had taken me under their wing and sort of helped me have a biblical worldview. And so he said, I want to do that for other students. Long story short, we ended up with this building by the grace of God. We bought it for $30,000 in 1962. It was for sale for back taxes, so we bought it from the IRS. Probably the best transaction we've had with the IRS since then. And and we started a little program. In 1988, a dad sent his son. He said to his son, look, listen, buddy, I'm going to give you a choice next summer. You can either drive to school or and go to Summit this summer, or you can take the bus and do whatever you want this summer. It is absolutely your choice. Either way is fine with me. The student chose wisely and came to Summit, sat here, and called his dad about 3 days later and said, this was really the best thing that ever happened to me. You were totally right. I needed to be here. I'm sorry I gave you such a hard time about it. Can I come back? And we had a couple of sessions that summer. He said, sure, yeah, why don't you come home, get a couple of your friends, and I'll send you back for another session this summer. And then the next year, that dad called us and said, my son Ryan had a really great experience there at Summit. I have this little radio show you might have heard of called Focus on the Family, and I would love for you and Ryan to come on and tell all of our listeners about the great work you're doing there in Manitou. So James Dobson had Summit on his broadcast in 1989, and really the phone hasn't ever stopped ringing since. So we went from maybe a couple of hundred students a year to now, this session's picture with 186 students packing the house. We do that 10 times a summer right now all over the country. We also have a location in Tennessee and in Pennsylvania. Over the course of the last 57 years since we were founded, we think we've had almost 60,000 students come through Summit. This is what they do when they're here at the student conference. 60 hours of classroom time, 40 meals, 7 small group sessions. We try to put the students in small groups that are They're gender specific, so the guys are with the guys, the girls are with the girls, and age appropriate. So a 20-year-old is probably hanging out with other 20-year-olds. A 16-year-old's probably kind of in a group around their age as well. We really want to create a place that is safe for students to wrestle through these big ideas. So many times they may have doubts or they may have questions and they don't know where to go. And so we say on the first day, look, we're not afraid of any questions. We're not afraid of any questions. We want you to ask your questions here. So that's our plan. That's our hope. And that's what we believe has happened here. And I want to share some stories of that. And then we really, really want their time here to be holistic. There's an author and a professor named Stephen Garber who wrote a book called Fabric of Faithfulness, and this is what he found really makes a difference with students who tend to own their faith for themselves and continue to practice their faith after they leave home. Kind of three things, and this may be helpful for you after you leave here to be thinking about it like this. Garber says the first is those students who really own their faith and had a strong belief that they were practicing after they left home, had convictions, meaning that they had a worldview that was really big enough to handle the storms of life, to handle the world the way it really was. Right? They didn't lean on platitudes and just say, well, I just have to have enough faith for this thing to happen. Like they had thought about, why is it that I believe what I believe? And they had seen how it interacted and engaged with real life. The other thing was that they had mentors. We call it, they had examples of character in their life. Now, one of the things that we think about mentorship is that, oftentimes, and especially when I was younger, I thought, oh man, to get a mentor means I've got to find somebody who will have coffee with me every day for the next 27 years until I'm finally able to go do this thing on my own. But what Garber found was, and other research that we've done has found that oftentimes a student will look at a mentor as somebody who maybe had coffee with them once. Or maybe just said, hey, why don't we go on a camping trip together? Or I care about you. Why don't we sit down and have a conversation? So I want to encourage you later on, especially we'll talk about this, but I want to encourage you to think about who might be a good mentor for your student. And you may not have to ask them for this big commitment that's, hey, would you have coffee with them once a week until they're 150 years old? It may just be, would you have a conversation with them? Would you take them out for coffee once and see how it goes? So we can talk more about that individually if you want to. And then finally, Garber found that students who had a lifelong faith tended to have a community around them where they could see how their belief system engaged every area of life, kind of cradle to the grave, and they could watch as that person worked their faith out in different situations. So it wasn't just a Sunday morning faith. It was a faith that they were watching all of life happen together. So I want to encourage you to be thinking about how could we do that? How could we create moments like that for our students to really see these three things happen? Expand their worldview and talk about how it engages the real day-to-day things of life. Introduce them to mentors, and then introduce them to the community. Bring them into community. With my daughters, I have 4 daughters. We're trying to bring them into like some of the hard decisions. Hey, should we buy another house? Should we buy a bigger house? Should we buy a smaller house? How do we get our neighbors engaged in our life of faith? And some of them don't know Jesus. How can we do that? And we brainstorm that sort of thing together. It's that kind of idea. And then we have a small group at our home where we try to bring our daughters into that time rather than just hire a babysitter to keep them in the basement and hope they're quiet and don't disturb us. Like we want to try to bring them into moments in that when it's appropriate for them to kind of hear the conversation and have conversation with us. So that's kind of how we're trying to play it out. So maybe that will help you have some ideas of your own as well. Here at Summit, we believe that biblical influence is like DNA. Now, anybody here in the field of medicine or maybe studied what DNA looks like, you'll know that it's double strands woven together in a helix. So it's like a ladder with these rungs on the ladder, and it twists around itself. So one side of this ladder of influence, as we would call it, is truth. And the other side of this ladder of influence is relationship. And the two of them have to go hand in hand, or else influence really breaks down. If you just have, if you just have truth, some of you know people like this. I'm going to beat you over the head with this truth. And it really comes across as arrogance. If you just have relationship, look, what's fine for you is fine for you. You know, we can all just get along. That can come across as apathy. So we believe when you can weave those two things together, and this is what our summer staff, we bring in 40 to 60 summer staff who are here engaging with your students every day in one-on-one conversations in small groups, when they're going to sports time, when they're sitting in the back of the classroom. They believe, and we have trained them to ask the question every day, how can I build rungs in this ladder of truth and relationship? So we want to influence your students from a biblical worldview. So this is what our daily schedule looks like. We're up at 8:30 in the morning. We're breakfast before that, actually. We're up way before 8:30 in the morning. Sorry, our first class starts at 8:30 in the morning, and we're going pretty strong almost every morning until noon. And then oftentimes there's a class right after lunch where we kind of round out the afternoon's schedule. I want to zoom in kind of on a couple of these so that we can see this session. I think this was one of the best sessions we've ever had, because the first day started off with Sean McDowell playing the atheist. Now, Sean McDowell, how many of you know Josh McDowell? Sean is Josh's son and has become quite an apologist in his own right. Sean actually came to Summit, I believe it was in the early 90s, when he came to his dad. He tells the story, he and his dad were on a trip in the mountains, and he told his dad, I'm just having questions. All right, first off, I don't want to tell Josh McDowell that I have questions about my faith, especially if I'm his kid, right? You know what Josh said? Josh said, no problem. Why don't you go down to Summit and sit in on a session at Summit? So Sean came to Summit, sat through 2 weeks at Summit, and came home and said, thanks, Dad. Yeah, that was really powerful for me. I think I'm good for a while, which just kind of cracks me up. I don't know why Josh didn't slide evidence that demands a verdict across the table to him, but we'll talk about that some other time, I guess. But so Sean comes and plays the atheist. Sean is probably a better atheist than most atheists. And he really sits up here and says, look, I want to challenge you on the things that you believe, and just to ask your students about that time, because it's memorable. Most of the students will have some takeaway from that experience where they're asking themselves, yeah, why do I believe that? Which is a good thing. You know, they're really asking, what's the reason that I think that? Because Sean makes them really question some of the things that maybe they haven't questioned before, so that they can dig into more of the foundations and core of their belief system. In the second week, you can actually see Josh McDowell then came back in the second week and was here talking about the reliability of the scriptures. And I think Josh brings a bunch of scrolls with him that are, some of them are very ancient, some of them are maybe just a couple of 100 years old, but students get to see, and Josh goes into a really in-depth discussion on how do we know that Scripture is reliable? How did it get handed down? And he gets into some really deep stuff. And after students hear that, they recognize the Bible is inspired. God has been taking care of His Word for thousands of years so that we could be handed this document that isn't just historical, but it's also inspired and supernatural. So really fun to have guys like Josh McDowell here in the classroom with students. And I mean, the students can come up and engage with him. Every day, we have what we call open forums. So students aren't just sitting in a class. Maybe they get to ask a couple questions in class, but actually after the class, usually at night after dinner, they'll crowd out on the front porch, or sometimes after lunch, they'll crowd out on the front porch, and a speaker will sit on the front porch and they'll say, okay, I've been lecturing to you. Now it's your turn. Ask me anything. And if you sit down with a faculty member and you talk with them and you say, what do you like about Summit? What don't you like about Summit? They'll tell you, look, I know my talk, right? I've given my talk 100 times, but when I stand out on that front porch and I say, okay, ask me anything, I don't know what's coming. I don't know if I'm ready for that, because our students really will ask them anything. I've been out there and I've heard girls ask, why did my mom get cancer and die? I've heard young men and women just really bear some very deep personal things in the midst of this community that they're in, and say, I don't know what to do with this. Help me. And it is really exciting to see that spiritual journey start right in front of your eyes. So that's one of my favorite times. What we have told your students to kind of like the next step, what are some of the things we want them to take away? Obviously, all the truth, all the community and relationship, but here are just a couple of things that are really practical next steps for them. We've encouraged them to consider the habits that they have, because the habits that they form are going to form them. So this is where you can step in and ask them about that. Ask them about, did you form any habits at Summit that you might be able to bring home with you? The next thing that we tell them is the habits that you change, right, are going to be the things that change you for the better. So we've actually, Dr. Myers, our president, who you're here tonight, encourages them to ask, what barrier might be keeping you from a deeper relationship with Jesus? Often it's a habit that they feel like, I can't stop this. This could be a very teachable moment. This could be the moment that your son or daughter opens up to you and says, look, I've been wrestling with this thing and I really want to quit. So I just encourage you to ask them about it, because we think the Holy Spirit's been working on them over the last 2 weeks, and we want them to bring that to light with you and share it with you. And we also encourage them that every decision that they're going to make is going to take them somewhere. Whether they decide not, even sometimes when they think they're not making a decision at all, right, it's going to take them somewhere. So talk to them about the decisions. Many of you probably have students who are trying to pick a college or trying to pick a career or figure out what they're going to be when they grow up. We've talked a lot about that during the last 2 weeks. So engage with those conversations. And I'd encourage you to engage by asking a lot of questions. These are some of the things that we've heard students say over the course of the last 2 weeks. And we actually ask them, would you send these to us? Would you tell us what you think your biggest takeaways are? So I just wanted to share a couple of them with you. Here's one. We talk a lot about life and bioethics. So we dig into like stem cell research and what are some of these views that are kind of out there in culture about those things. So this student said, embryonic research proves that a fetus is a distinct living being. I am definitely pro-life now. This student said, I've been having doubts about the logic of the Christian faith, and J. Warner Wallace did a tremendous job of clearing up my doubts. This student said, I really love Josh McDowell and his historical evidence that the Bible and Christ are real. And not only that, but that the Bible is accurate. How cool is that? That now we have students who are walking away going, you know what? Yeah, I'm not just going to read that book because my Sunday school teacher told me. I'm going to read it because it's real and it's accurate. So these are the kinds of transformative things that are happening, and many, many, many more that I hope you all will get to hear as you take your long drives home or jump on the airplane. I want to encourage you not to be surprised, though, if maybe for the next 3 days your student does nothing but sleep in the back seat or hole up in their room, right? So my wife and I had a friend who, a young college student who came 2 sessions ago and then came to our home afterwards for a week, and she literally went down in the room in the basement and slept for about 2 days because, we're going from some of them 7 o'clock in the morning until 11 or 12 at night. having deep conversations, playing, rock climbing and laser tag and volleyball and frisbee, and we're running hard, we're playing hard, we're thinking hard, and sometimes we're wrestling through really deep things that are going on in life. So it's okay. Everybody just take a deep breath. It's okay. Keep asking questions. It's all right. It's all right. They may just need a minute. Then I guess I would encourage you as well in that to join them in the journey. And one of the things that we try very hard to impress on the students, and talk about it a lot, our faculty bring it up many, many times, that leaders are readers. And in the back of the room, you'll see a couple of double doors with glass on them. That's our bookstore. And I'll hear from parents every year, hey, what have you done with my son? Because I just got a call that it sounded like it was him, but he was asking me these strange questions like, how much money do I have to spend on books, Dad? And do we have this book at home on our bookshelf? That's really fun to see, that students get inspired to really dig into topics and issues that maybe they've never heard of before. Often the parent will give me a little jab and say, look, I've had that book on our bookshelf for 5 years and my students never cared about it until they came to Summit. So good job, but I've been telling them this is important forever. But if they want to read a book, maybe you get a copy of it too, or read it together with them. Like, let's join them on the journey together, because they may come home with interests they've never had before, and your involvement in that could continue the learning beyond just, the camp high, that sort of little honeymoon period after they get back, and then realize, oh, real life's going to hit them right in the face. So join them in that, and you might be surprised what you learn yourself. We have a lot of resources. In fact, our website, we just launched a new thing on our website called the Resource Library, where we've put tons of content, hundreds of articles, podcasts, and videos on our website. So that might even be a place to go. Go to summit.org, look in our resources section, and find something that piques your interest, and ask your student, hey, did you hear this faculty member speak, or did you all talk about this topic? Tell me about it. Teach me. Because right now they may, they have more of it right on the tip of their tongue than they might have in a week or a month or next year. So I've talked a lot about asking questions. I want to just reiterate that. One of the greatest things you can do is just ask them, tell me about that topic. Tell me more about that. Get a copy of the schedule. Ask them to show you their notebook. So every one of them will have a very thick blue 3-ring binder. Ask them to walk you through it. That's going to bring up a lot of conversation. Oh, I heard Sean McDowell was here and pretended to be an atheist. Tell me about that. What did he ask you? What sorts of things did he bring up that might have been challenging, or maybe you hadn't experienced before? We talked an awful lot about pro-life issues. So I just encourage you, ask them about those things, and see what they can teach you, because they've gained an awful lot of knowledge after the 60 hours in the classroom and on the front porch with these faculty members. This is going to be good for all of us. Another thing that we want them to do is really put some action to the learning. None of us on staff here is doing this because we want your students to get smarter. Right? We want your students to get smarter so that they go do something. We all want to challenge them to go do something. Join them in that, and maybe volunteer at your church, or get involved in ministry in your community, a homeless shelter, or a crisis pregnancy center. Go with them and do that together, because your involvement means so much to them, even if they give you a look like, what? Trust me. Trust me, they want that. They need that. They're at a moment where this could be the time for you to engage in that way. And then help them find godly mentors. I mentioned it earlier. That is one of the things that we believe is probably the most important the most important characteristic that was across the board the same when students who kept their faith were studied over and over and over again in study after study. They had mentors who they walked with. And again, it doesn't have to be a big, huge thing, just, introducing them. So why don't we just think about that right now? Who do you know back at home that could be a mentor for your student? I'm just going to take a minute. You think of that person, because I want you to walk out of this room with some takeaways. So I'll be quiet and you can think of that person. I mentioned we have several resources at Summit, but I want to just run through some things that maybe something that you haven't heard of or known about. The first one is that we have a podcast called Christian Worldview Thinking. You can find it on iTunes and all the other places that you get podcasts. We also have a robust YouTube channel, right, Andrew, that has really, really great content on it. So just look up Summit Ministries on YouTube, and you'll find hours and hours of content to enjoy there. We have the Alumni Network. This is something we really want your student to engage with after they leave. So the resources that we're putting online, we want to email and text to your student after they leave. So that could be one question. Hey, how do you want to stay engaged with Summit now that you've been through it? And encourage them to check out the Alumni Network. We have a dedicated website to that. We send out resources every single month to help them continue the journey. We want to walk with them as long and as far as they want us to go. So any help that you can give to continue, spurring them that way, we'd appreciate that. We'll also send you and your student a program guide. You may have already received it actually via email. It's an electronic guide that just connects you with many of the faculty members who are at parts of ministries around the world. This just gives you a good handle on kind of where to go if somebody says, "Oh yeah, J. Warner Wallace, who's that?" And that'll be in the resource guide. We'll also just encourage you to look for other great podcasts. Here's one. It's called Unbelievable. There was a great interview with Sean McDowell on that podcast. So there are lots and lots of resources out there for you to look at. Stand to Reason is one we mentioned earlier with Rethink. They have a great website. They have a podcast as well. So if you don't hear the word podcast 4 more times before I'm done, sorry. They're just really great stuff out there. ColdCaseChristianity.com is another. That is J. Warner Wallace's website. And it's a fantastic place for you to go to find content and help. The Bible Project is another on YouTube, super site. And then finally, I want to encourage you. You may be hearing questions back from your student now. That these are kind of the three kinds of questions that we hear afterwards. And the first one is you may hear questions from a student, or even this may help you in conversations that you're having, completely aside from conversations with your student. Oftentimes somebody might ask a question from a place of despair, like, why would a loving God let people get sick and die? Or why is there so much evil and suffering in the world? We find that oftentimes those questions that come from a place of hurt, there's something behind that, right? It isn't just that they've been intellectually stimulated by the idea of a loving God and then this juxtaposition of hurt and suffering. They've actually been hurt, or they've watched suffering happen. So I'd encourage you, when you hear a question from a place of despair, dig into what is that? What's behind that? Why are you asking that question? Have you seen that, or did you experience that? Another place that questions come from is often from a place of instigation. If you have kids, you've often probably gotten a question like this, like, why do I have to do the dishes? But oftentimes those questions around faith, someone's just trying to stir something up. Again, there's something behind that. So I want to encourage you to kind of, in those two situations, ask the question, what's behind that question? And then finally, the place that we've been trying to get your students to is asking a question as an adventure. That's That's the place where we want all these questions to sort of rise to. This idea of, that's a great question. Let's look into that together. And so I want to encourage you to kind of steer conversations that way whenever you can. And hopefully that's a helpful place for you as you walk away from Summit, just kind of thinking through what's just happened with my student over the last 12 days. I hope some of this time has been helpful for you. And I'd love to open things up to questions as well. So if you have questions, I'll answer the best I can. And I'll just kind of leave it at that here for the next minute or so. Usually helps if somebody has a question right here. So, yes. Yes, sir.
My son mentioned the Summit semester. Can you just describe that a little more?
Yes. And you can find out more about our other programs at summit.org. Summit semester is a semester-long course, as it sounds. It takes place in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, which is 5 hours or so south of here, and a 4.5. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, that's where you're from. Great. Well, so they can probably tell you more about Summit semester than I can then. So down in Pagosa, it's really hard to get cell phone and internet, especially where we're located. So there's the first plus to that program. So students really do disconnect, and what we do is we bring college professors from all over the country down. You get college credit for the coursework that you do there. We think of it sort of as a gap year opportunity, and students live in community together in basically a lodge. We have about capacity for about 35 students in that program. We will talk about it's sort of taking the 2-week session and going, much 10 times deeper, right? What we hear from students at the end of that time together is not only that they've learned a lot in their courses, but they've actually learned a lot about themselves because they've had a job to do with the community. They've had to figure out, how do I work through a difficulty that I might have with this person who's my roommate for the last 10 weeks. And, you just see a lot of things happen when they can't check their phone every 2 minutes for, did somebody like my post on Facebook? And I've got to check my email, and I got to text my best friend back home, because we really do disconnect, and they have a maturing moment for that time at Summit semester, and love to talk to you more about that afterwards if there are specific questions. Yeah. All right. Well, dinner is in about 10 minutes upstairs, so I want to thank you all very much for taking the time, and again, thank you for trusting us with your most valuable and precious thing in this whole world, your kids. It's been an absolute joy to be with them. So thank you so much. God bless you.
All right, guys, welcome to Session 5 graduation. Please go on and stand and join me as we sing our last song.
Through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Jesus, yours is the victory. Oh, and hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Jesus Christ, my living hope. You are my living hope.
All right, you guys may be seated. So like I said, yeah, welcome to Session 5 graduation. You guys have been one of the loudest sessions I've ever seen. And that was, there we go. There we go. Okay. I was gonna say that first one was pretty lame, but that was better. That second time, that was a lot better. All right, welcome to all the friends and family who have joined us in the lobby. Also, everyone joining online through the live stream, welcome to you guys. We're so glad you guys have joined us. We have so enjoyed getting to know you guys over the last 2 weeks. Your small group leaders have been praying for you ever since we found out your names before you even got here. We prayed over every single binder the night before you guys arrived. We've just been really excited to get to meet you, and we're so glad that you guys have come here and we've been able to learn more about you guys and love you guys. You guys have done a lot together. You sat through 55 lectures, almost over 60 hours. You have, I think we did the math correct, and if we're doing our math correctly, sneezed in class about 300 times or maybe more. Big sneezing session. Also, we have counted. You have dropped your binders 50 times. Right on the, yeah. I think that's also a record for the summer too. So, yeah. 2 fronts, yeah. You've been challenged the last 2 weeks. You might not have agreed with everything that the speakers said on stage, but no matter what, you were challenged in what you believed, and you spent 2 weeks trying to work through those issues and think about those things. Not a lot of people your age will take the time to do that. So again, give yourselves a round of applause for that. Yeah. Something else you guys participated in is the staff auction. For those of you who don't know what the staff auction is, it is a time where the staff will get on stage and they will sell themselves in fun events to raise money for the Summit Alumni Program. And so all of the money that was raised on Tuesday night, Monday night, one of those nights, all of the money that was raised will go towards scholarships for students next year. And those are fully funded scholarships for students who they wouldn't have this opportunity otherwise, like they could not make it financially. So all the money that you guys raise will go directly to that. And so, can I get a drum roll for how much you guys raised? You guys raised $5,255. Something else you guys have done is you've bought a lot of books. You spent a lot of time with Elizabeth, and I think there's been a raffle that you guys have been waiting to hear the winner for. Something? Yeah, Elizabeth's coming on up. This is gonna be a long drum roll. All right, here
All right. The moments you have all been waiting for. Davis Ellis. Congratulations, Davis. If you would like to come to the bookstore after graduation, you can pick out your 5 free books.
And one last thing that you guys have done a lot is, I know it's the evening, but every morning, you guys will stand up and we'll do our morning traditions. So if you, one last time with me, stand up, we're gonna do our morning traditions. All right. So every morning, the students do these traditions. If you would like to know why we do these traditions, you should ask your students, because I'm sure that they would love to tell you. All right, so, ready? I pledge allegiance. Cough on 3. 1, 2, 3. You guys can be seated. So, for those of you who haven't been with us for 2 weeks, we want to give you a little bit of a glimpse of what it looks like to be a student at Summit for a day. And also, this is a video you guys can show your friends when you're like, what'd you do for 2 weeks? A quick little video where you guys can see what it's like to be a student for a day.
Good morning. We're going to jump right in. Is there counter evidence that we can put on the side of the scale? Look at the Christian worldview, Islamic world. Technology does influence brain development. Culture is asking all the right questions, but sometimes coming up with really shallow answers. This is absolutely relevant to the way we lead today. Make sense? All right, thank you.
Lights out, ladies.
Congratulations on a fantastic 2 weeks, guys. I'm Meg. I'm one of the small group leaders, and I had the absolute privilege of having Mariah in my group. And we had a wonderful time learning from each other through ups and downs. But in the end, I know that she is so in love with God, and wherever He places her, she will follow Him in faithfulness and grace. So here's Mariah.
I just wanted to open in prayer. If you would bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for this amazing experience that we've had these past 2 weeks. Thank you for the relationships that we've been able to build and for your presence throughout this time that we've spent here at Summit. I pray that we would continue to bring you glory as we go about our new experiences and our lives together. May we just be able to take all that we've learned here and bring you glory in the rest of our lives. In your name I pray. Amen. So as she said, my name is Mariah, and I may be one of the only students here that is not from Texas. I'll be honest, I don't usually like doing public speaking. I usually like to just blend in and not be noticed, but I should have known that wasn't God's plan for me when I came in the first day of Summit 2 weeks ago, and I saw my name on the list, and there it was, right in the front row. So, but anyway, as I was thinking about what I might say today, my first thought was just about the different speakers that we've seen and heard from, and I was just thinking of all of just the amazing things that they've been able to say to us, and I just want to take a moment to express my appreciation for them and pouring out their lives and their time for us in topics like marriage or worldview or truth or economics even. This kind of discipleship is rarely found, and so I just wanted to take a moment and express my appreciation for all of them. And as we go forward in our lives after this, and maybe sometimes it might be boring day-to-day life, I just pray that we would be able to apply and share the truth that we've been given here. My hope for all of you and myself is that we wouldn't go home and be like the Dead Sea, sort of being always poured into, but never actually pouring out into our lives at home. You see, as we experience these sort of spiritual highs at Summit through the community and the amazing teaching, it can be easy for us to just kind of receive all of that information and not pour back out into our relationships at home and the people that we're involved with. So some of that may be forgetfulness, just in forgetting all that we've learned here. There's a lot of information. And also maybe, as Dr. Myers said, that we have barriers in our hearts, like pride or apathy or fear, more commonly. For me personally, it is definitely fear, whether it's discussing faith with any of you guys in different discussions I've had with friends here, or learning something new like rock climbing. I'll be honest, as a native Virginian, my first thought when I signed up for rock climbing last week was that it would be in an indoor gym. That was not the case, and since I have never rock climbed, I definitely felt a lot of fear as I went up and climbed that cliff. Anyway, my mom often encourages me to pray for those opportunities to learn new things and share my faith with others. She always says to me, why don't you pray for opportunities that scare you, that make you afraid? Because in them, God's strength can be shown more and more through your weakness and your fear. And so my encouragement for you all today then is don't let that fear hold you back. Don't let it stop you from sharing all that you've experienced here. Don't be that Dead Sea, but be one who pours out and gives back what you've learned. It doesn't have to be anything world-changing or just amazing. It could be something mundane, just in regular life, whether you're doing dishes for your mom or ministering to your neighbors, or all these different things are ways that we can express God's love. Because as Zechariah 4:10 says, God doesn't despise small beginnings. He simply calls us to be faithful each day in work, in school, in anything that our life may hold. And so I just want to encourage you guys to not be afraid of putting all that you've learned here to work in your own lives, in the big things and the small things, so that you may go whenever he calls you and as far as he calls you. And at the end of the day, say, as Paul said in 2 Timothy 4:6, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith.
Good evening. I'm Tim Yoder, and I get the pleasure of introducing Tim. Oh my God, it's McCracken. Tim McCracken. He is in my small group. It's been such an honor to just walk with him in these last 2 weeks, and he's such a man of God. And in the pursuit of wisdom, it's such an honor to be able to introduce him this evening. So here you go. Here's Tim McCracken.
Thank you. All right, so earlier this week, I was kind of just walking around, and I don't need your help for this one, but I was minding my own business, as usual. Thank you guys are awesome. All right, and when I was asked to do this presentation, or this speech, and honestly, I was not expecting it. Let me open up my notes. All right, so anyway, as I was introduced, my name is Tim McCracken, and this is actually my third year attending Summit, and honestly, I was not expecting to be giving a presentation or a speech, and I'm extremely honored to be able to talk to you guys and maybe, hopefully, tell you something. So I've thought a lot about what I was going to say. Ooh, there we go. And I continually came up with, at a loss. I mean, how am I supposed to sum up 2 weeks of amazing speakers, going into the land of philosophy with Dr. Hardenberg, or learning how to sue with Dr. Mike Adams, or learning what the ideas, how they have consequences with Mr. Myers, Dr. Myers, and so many other things. So it's been like drinking from a fire hydrant. There's so much information. But anyway. I wanted to recognize the amazing speakers and staff members that we have. So can I get actually a round of applause for them real quick? Thank you. Yeah. Because they've done an amazing job keeping this all running smoothly and making sure that everything's going great and that we're learning a lot. And I can honestly think of no better environment for us to be learning and like learning about these topics than, you know, right now and here. So I didn't think I could, didn't know of anything to say here. So the best thing I could think of was to steal something from Dr. Myers and just about the connection to truth and a relationship. That if we, they go hand in hand. If we just focus on, say, truth, we're going to become arrogant because we're not focusing on the person. But if we focus on, say, the relationship only, then we'll just become apathetic and not caring about truth at all. And I think it's really important that they both go hand in hand. And that was not me saying that, that's Dr. Myers. And I just think it's something to keep in mind, honestly, that we pursue both of those. And yeah. So we've gone through 60 hours of lectures, and that's honestly a lot. But in light of all of that, I just, that's a lot of information, and I don't want us to go around thinking that we can just whap someone upside the head with knowledge and just forget about who they are as a person. So I just think it's helpful to remember that, for me at least. So anyway, my prayer for everyone is just that, myself included, that we just continue to think about what we've learned here at Summit, and also seek wise counsel, seek mentors, people that are older than us, and just continue to learn and grow in what we've learned here. So, yeah, it was an honor to speak for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mariah. All right, now everyone in this room knows our next speaker. You might know him as a great storyteller. Maybe you know him as the guy you had lunch with. Maybe he's the man who changed the way that you saw the world. Sadly enough, he cannot be here in person tonight, but he's made you a very special video. For those of you who don't know who this is, I'd like to introduce our president of Summit Ministries, Dr. Jeff Myers.
You made it. I am so proud of you for having completed a session at Summit. This makes us fellow alums in one of the most amazing programs in the world. And I know that your heart now is moved toward wanting to be the kind of person who really makes a difference for Jesus. Think of everything that we've done, all the classes that we've been through, the friendships that we've formed, the small groups, the personal commitments that different people have made to knock down the barriers that stop them from living a life that's fully committed to Jesus. So I just wanted to kind of add to the evening's experience by telling a couple more stories. I hope that's okay with you. But the stories relate to two things I want you to always remember. And the first one is this: just keep going, even if it seems like everybody else is going the other direction. I've always been the kind of person who, when I see everybody else moving one way and I'm kind of going the other, I wonder, am I doing something wrong? Am I not understanding something that everybody else understands? But I had a strange experience recently that gave me a different perspective on that. During the wintertime, I run a lot through Garden of the Gods, and the park is fairly empty, which is great. But then in the springtime, when tourists come back to Colorado, it's a little bit irritating. So I was running up into the park and saw a barricade across the road enforced by a police car, and I thought, why are they blocking off my park? So I went up to the police car, and I said, I hope it's okay for runners to go on through. He said, sure, it's fine, just don't get in the way of the race. I didn't think anything more about it. Well, don't get in the way of the race, whatever. So I just put my earbuds back in, kept on running. I came down a hill, and coming toward me were 500 runners. When I saw them, my first thought was, oh, I'm going to be trampled. Then I realized, oh no, it's okay, because they're all on that side of the road. Right down the middle of the road were orange cones, and I was running on this side of the road. As they ran past, over the course of a couple hundred yards, I noticed that they were all staring at me. And that was awkward. I was the one guy going this way, 500 people coming this way, and they're all staring at me. I couldn't figure out what was going on until all of a sudden I realized that in their race, they had to run down this side of the orange cones to a turnaround spot and then come back the direction I was going. I was winning. The first time in my life I had ever felt like I was in first place. I didn't know what race it was or where the finish line was, but I was ahead. And the thought in the minds of all 500 of those people was, how did that middle-aged guy ever get so far ahead of us running like that? And that, I realized sometimes when you think you're going the wrong direction, it's just that you're out a little bit ahead of everybody else. You're seeing things they haven't seen. You're understanding the times that still seem befuddling to everybody else. And the weirdest part is this. When I realized that they thought I was winning the race, I started running faster. I had the best run I have ever had because all of a sudden the 500 people whose eyes were on me didn't mean that I was going the wrong direction against the flow and I should be embarrassed, but that in fact I should be inspired because these people all expected me to lead well. Anyway, it just reminded me that we should keep going even when the currents seem to be against us. The second thing I wanted to say to you as you get ready to graduate from Summit, because I know you're excited by the experience you've had here. You've been able to set some good goals and feel really good about them. But you know, failures can come. And so my point to you is this: just get back up and run all the way to the finish line. That's it. Just get back up and run all the way to the finish line. I love this little book I have in my office. It's called Bud Greenspan's 100 Greatest Olympic Moments Children's Edition. I like the children's editions because the stories are short and the pictures are big. And one of my favorites is a picture of this runner named John Stephen Akhwari. He was a marathoner from the country of Tanzania. Most people have never even heard of Tanzania. But he had come to the Olympics long time ago. It was 1968 in the Mexico City Olympics. He didn't expect to win the race, but he did want to compete and be very good as a runner, and he was very proud of his country. He wanted to do his very best, which makes it all the more sad that as the race began, people kind of got tangled up, and he ended up being pushed down and trampled on by the other runners. Of course, the paramedics came over and said, "Let's get you onto a stretcher. We'll bandage you up. Your race is over." And he said, "No, bandage me up. I'm going to keep running." They said, "But you can't." He said, "No, I'm going to run." So they realized he's stubborn, he's determined, he's full of adrenaline, he's going to do this. So they bandaged him up and he hobbled off behind the other runners. He was injured to the point where he not only finished last in the race, he finished 1 hour after the last other runner finished the race. The marathon in those days, you would come into the stadium for the final lap. As he made his way around the track, everybody else is gone. Most of the crowd is gone. The radio commentators are mostly gone. The other athletes are gone. And he's hobbling around the track. The people remaining in the stands were looking at it like, what's going on? Who is this guy? All of a sudden they realized this is the last man in the marathon. He fell down. He was injured. He's plainly all bandaged up, but he refused to give up. At that moment, I think something happened to the people in that stadium. Maybe you've had this kind of an experience where you're watching a performance that's so amazing that you sort of live your life through that athlete. Do you know what I'm talking about? That experience where their victories are becoming your victories and their defeats become your defeats. The people in that stadium on that day looked at John Stephen Akhwari and thought, this is the guy who fell down, but he got back up. He wouldn't give up. How many times in my life have I fallen down and I didn't want to get back up? I take inspiration from him. I want him to succeed because that tells me something about what I want for myself. A slow, rhythmic clapping sound began to resound throughout the stadium. As John Stephen Akhwari collapsed across the finish line into the arms of his coach, the place erupted. One of the commentators who still remained on the property said, "You could have sworn that John Stephen Akhwari had just won the gold medal." The crowd response was that enthusiastic. Well, he hadn't won the gold medal. He hadn't come in first. He'd come in dead last. But in people's hearts, he had won the gold medal, hadn't he? Because he was the man who refused to stay down. He got back up and ran all the way to the finish line. When I think about the idea of life being a race, it immediately calls to mind a passage in Scripture that says exactly that. It's Hebrews chapter 11 and chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 11 is often called the Hall of Faith. Here are all of these people who had faith in God and were able to change the circumstances of everyone around them. It's an interesting list. You could call it the Hall of Faith, but sometimes I think it might just be called the Hall of Knuckleheads, because you look at these people. There was a prostitute in that list. There was a murderer in that list. These were not the kind of people who had never fallen down, who earned the right to be leaders because they never made any mistakes. They were people who had fallen flat on their face in front of the whole world, and yet they got back up, and through faith in God, they were able to have an enduring impact on their generation. Then Hebrews chapter 12 transitions this way. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us set aside every sin, everything that entangles us, and let us run with perseverance the race that is marked out for us, for the author and finisher of our faith, Jesus Christ. I love the idea of the cloud of witnesses because it calls to mind that all of those people in the previous chapter, those great people of faith who fell down and got back up, they are now in the stands, so to speak, watching us run our race. They handed the baton from one generation to the next, all the way down to now. And now the baton comes to you. Someday, I am going to be in that great cloud of witnesses. I am going to be sitting there hanging out with my friends, Moses, Noah, all of them. And you are going to enter the stadium for your final lap. As I think about that, I just want you to know that I will be cheering for you. Because what I want for you more than anything is that you will be able to come across that finish line and be wrapped up in the arms of your Savior, and he will say to you, "Well done, good and faithful servant, enter into my joy." On that day, it will have been worth it all. So if you write to me and I write back to you, I'll probably say to you, cheering for you. And now you know why. Because you are the generation, you are the ones God is choosing to step in and stand for truth and fight against evil and injustice in the day in which we live. And I am cheering for you. Thank you.
All right, guys, we're just going to take a couple-minute break. Don't leave the room. We're just going to set up for diplomas, but go on and you can talk amongst yourselves.
right, guys, everyone calm down. Have a seat, quiet down. Quiet down, guys. All right, guys, we're going to start handing out our diplomas. And the way we're going to do this is they're going to dismiss you by rows. And we're going to, instead of everyone like erupting and clapping every single student that comes up here, we're going to have a pattern for that. So how it's going to go is it's going to go John Doe, Jane Doe, Cookie Doe, I don't know. Let's go. All right, you guys got that? All right. Let's go. Come on up. All right. Jonathan Verghese. With excellence, Savannah Pervins. Ben Carmen. Alex Vaughn. Luke Amen. Anna McKinney. With excellence, Jake Farmer. With excellence, Angelina Yeager. Colby Rector. With excellence, Valentina Perlaza. With excellence, Stephen Russell. With excellence, Bethany Scrum. Alex Bonwow. With excellence, Sarah Scott. Dylan Wilson. Amelia Smith. Liam McNeil. Audrey Northam. Josh Guerrero. Aubrey Dillard. Lincoln Martin. With excellence, Anna Bruce. Matt Bell. With excellence, Tinley Unruh. Sam Sheen. Morgan Odakoven. Ryan Schaefer. Paige Martin. Cody Beachy. Grace Snyder. Styles McDonald. Jenna Robertson. Jonathan Aarons. Mindy Carr. Luke White. With excellence, Catherine Russell. Caden McClure. With excellence, Josie Motter. Ethan Powers. Joel Watts. Trevor Addison. With excellence, Shelby Binion. Joseph Carmen. With excellence, Mia Graham. Dan Waringa. Danielle Gnat. Ellie Merkplant. With excellence, Jack Liska. Catherine White. Noah Sims. Holly King. Augustine Wilson. Abby Epperson. Jed Duke. Stephen Finch. Lydia Thomas. Jonathan Norris. Caitlin Grisby. Oscar Arnold. Lauren Ardle. With excellence, Clara May Maxon. Conrad Teston. With excellence, Lauren Goot. Jack Ploser. Trinity Clifford. John Dienwan. Seth Mossberg. With excellence, Sarah Clark. Houston Weimer. Annie Murray. With excellence, Luke Mueller. Louisa Schorlemer. Logan Whiteman. Hannah Curtis with excellence. Caleb Duke. Isabella Johnson. Nathan Hollis. Claire Reeves. Jonathan Graver. Jenna Colcom. Rebecca Joyner. Malachi Williams. Janetta McKinsley. Andrew Mudderspa. Elena Blake. Elijah Holcamp. Stephanie Bramble. Emily St. Clair. Trevor King. With excellence, Esther Verghese. Davis Glenn Ellis. Laura Leocom. Ethan Lisson. Allison Schloger. Mason Noli. Sam Getz. Anna Goldstrand. Chase Anderson, Lydia Poland, Kyle Phillips, Emily Roller, Luke Thomason, Anna Winnicke, Andrew Spencer, Millie Cullis, Shayler Keenum, Rayleigh Hazel, Tim McCracken, Laura Dosing, Colin Masters, Noelle Hollister, Braxton Braley, Becca Bell, Nathan Kawim, Sarah Sanders, Braden Shulda, Faith Jury, Matt Dusung, Cameron Fuller, Lane Wilfong, Ava Mayo, Garrett Carson, Shannon Retamiki, Andrew Han, with excellence, Megan Reed, Mary Kate Powell, Thomas Purvance, Anna Winter, Cotter Thompson, Michaela Collins, Micah Chapman, Sarah Schmidt, Trent Enos, Ronnie Erickson, Curtis Kayat, Kylie Jones, Connor Goodson, Maddie Barney, Adam Runyon, Linnea Porres, Tyler Benovitz, Samantha Shitton, Andrew Evans, Cody Clayhold, Michaela Smoker, Xavier Ramser, Sheridan Wood, Daniel Allen, with excellence, Danielle Clade, Ryan Kerr, Savannah Smucker, Daly Armstrong, Dan Brazel, with excellence, Delaney Euling, Madison Manners, sorry, Madison, Jonathan Robertson, Caroline Beast, Blake Dunn, Maddie Reperto, Parker Owen, Cassidy Nelson, Timothy Yoon, Ingrid Goldstrand, Colin Kim, Anna Kate Emin, Jonathan Sanders, Bethany C., Geneva Thomas, Caleb Parsley, Anna Wayenberg, with excellence, Jared Kemp, Abby Bell, Ian Bear, Elizabeth Schinneberger, David Yanis, Emily McCracken, Mariah Hewlin with excellence, Parker Leroy, Kirsten Middleton, Ty Masters, Addie Colas, and Samuel Loveday. Woo!
All right, guys, and now we were very excited. You've seen probably our video interns are running around. JD is right here filming right now. And they have prepared a session video to kind of wrap up your time here. You guys can show this to your friends at home. This is like for your session. So without further ado, here's the session video.
Where I've grown up, everyone goes to church. So when I hear about all these people who like don't actually believe in God, I'm like, that doesn't even like seem real. I mean, I know it is, but I know that in college it's going to be completely different, because that's when actually, you know, people start to believe what they want to believe, not what their parents believe, or they're not forced to do anything. They can do whatever they want.
It was kind of like lonely. I definitely realized I liked people more than I thought I did. And so just like that definitely brought some doubts.
Sometimes back home it just seems like you're just alone in everything. You know, you don't have anyone to turn to. You just feel like you're the only one that's struggling with an issue.
But just like the speakers have really like addressed stuff and like hit on like what to do. You're not a bad person if you have doubts. You're not like limited in your Christianity if you have doubts. Like everyone does have those. And so just getting to like hear their perspectives and what to do with your certain doubts and like what a proper way to handle those is.
Honestly, this is the only thing I've done that's like it. Intensive apologetics, learning how to not only defend the faith, but like to live it out more so. Like taking these hard concepts and like being in such a great community to actually learn how like, all right, how should we live this out and how should we apply all these things that we're learning? And I can't really say there's anywhere that's like it.
Jesus came to give us abundant life, and like I see that so much here, like abundant life, people not living in legalism, but people like going out and enjoying creation and really having fun and just living life to the fullest while also serving God, because sometimes it feels like you have to choose God or fun. And so just like really understanding that like in Christ, like he came to give us abundant life. So I think that's what a really big thing that the Lord has been teaching me, just seeing so many people with true authentic faith who are truly living abundantly.
We have so much fun in our little small group because Ellie will just like throw out a question about something we've learned that day, and then he just lets us like just go at it and we talk.
I just love how small the group is because we just are more comfortable with speaking our mind, you know? And I guess like the more shy people feel more comfortable to speak, and we can just be honest with one another. So it's been really, really good.
Since Summit's 2 weeks long, you have time to actually get to know the people, maybe go on hikes and actually be able to open up. Because like, I strongly believe that like guys can't really just like go into a room with a guy and just tell them everything about them. You kind of have to do stuff like shoulder to shoulder before you can actually get to know them, building like a relationship before you can actually tell them like your problems and stuff.
It's never been like clear to me that having doubts is normal. I mean, in school, like, you know, if you don't understand the math problem, if you raise your hand, like people are gonna laugh. But here, like you raise your hand and ask a question, it's like totally normal, totally okay. If you aren't asking questions, then they're like, oh, something's wrong with this dude. Like, he's not paying attention.
It's really nice to find people like me here that care about learning about the world and about God, and people who are also searching for truth. And that's really encouraging because a lot of times it can feel like you're the only one. And you come here and there's 280 of us, and so it's really been super encouraging to find so many people who truly care about the truth.
That was amazing. Josh and Hannah, again, were your heads of staff. You know, it's a little lonely up here. You know, can we get the staff actually? Yeah. Guys, encourage our staff. Come on. Yeah. Give you a good look at them. Beautiful. Wow, I didn't know that it would be, wow, so crowded. Cool. Guys, this, yeah, here we go. This is the team that brought you Summit, but you also brought Summit to us. We tried to offer you as much as we could. We offered you our beloved hotel home, tried to make it feel like home to you too. We cooked the food. They cooked the food. Cleaned the kitchen. Vacuumed your floors for a modest bribe. We clicked the front door open from the front desk for you. Seriously. All you had to do was pull the door, really. We stayed up late to patrol the hotel, mostly to keep you from going out and getting more custard in the middle of the night. More than that, we tried to offer a listening ear, an open heart, and a clear confidence for the truth. This staff has done its best for you guys, but you've brought so much to us too. You've brought us the elements that make Summit what it is. For instance, yesterday, hundreds and hundreds of balloons overflowing into the lobby for some reason. Also, an anthropomorphic sunglass-wearing fan named Chad. May he rest in peace. No, but really, the real things that we saw in all of you these 2 weeks were great questions, a zeal to learn, a hopeful eye to the future, and most important of all, love for the Lord as well as for each other. Those are what makes Summit what it is for us. Thanks for bringing Summit to us these 2 weeks. So we want to charge you with this. You are needed in the world. These are unusual times, and they require unusual courage and unusual wisdom. Sitting here through all these hours of lectures and doing what you guys did the last 2 weeks, it's a great beginning, but there's a lot more. There's a lot more. I hope you learned from Dr. Hartenberg that the truth doesn't need you. The truth is the truth no matter what, and that should give you hope. But the world does need you. It needs the Christian thinkers, workers, family members, and friends that we have seen you guys growing into these last 2 weeks. So that's what I want to charge you with.
We also we couldn't, speak for all of the staff. They've done their own job speaking to you, and I hope that, I know that what they've communicated to you is not only are you needed, but you're loved. Before you guys arrived, this staff sat in these chairs and prayed for you. They prayed for peace, and they prayed for understanding. They prayed for joy, and they prayed for hope for you. They loved you before you arrived. And when you got here, they washed your dishes, and they asked you questions, and they did room checks, not because it's just their job, but because they love you, and they want the world for you. We need you guys to know that this love doesn't end just because now you're leaving Summit. You came in as strangers, but you're leaving as the newest members of this Summit family, and we're super happy about that. We know that some of you are leaving as members of the Summit family, going into environments where Summit is just kind of a drop in the bucket of good experiences that you're going to have within the Christian community. And some of you are going into environments that you're not quite sure what it's going to be like when you get home now after Summit. And some of you do know what it's going to be like, and it's going to be really hard. But for all of you, we know the Summit atmosphere isn't going to go with you. But I think the staff would agree that our love does go with you. As cheesy as it sounds, we love you guys. And you need to know that you're leaving here loved. And the prayers that we prayed for you don't stop here. They're going home with you. So it kind of reminds me of Philippians 1:7 that says it's right for us to feel this way about all of you because we hold you in our hearts. And I think every staff member would agree that they hold you in our hearts. So you guys need to know that. You need to know that you're needed in the world and that you're loved by us. You're part of our family. You're welcome back anytime. We'd love to see you back. So staff, if you would just join me in blessing the students, if you would just extend a hand of blessing, I'll say the blessing, so don't worry. We didn't practice this. Students, may the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God the Father, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit go with you now and forevermore. Amen.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. For the second time, you really don't want that. I think no one would have said it better than Josh and Hannah. Like, we really love you guys. And I just want to personally tell you that you're one of the most creative, energetic, loving, Lord-loving group I've ever seen. I love every single one of you, and I'm really, really going to miss you guys. Thanks. Thank you, guys. Thanks. All right. Thank you, guys. So please, for the fifth time, thank you. Please join me in welcoming Molly back to the stage.
All right, good evening, class. Well done. Congratulations. You have graduated from session 5 of 2019. My name is Molly. I work full-time with Summit, and I get to oversee our student conferences here in Colorado. And I just have a few things to go through, because how could we possibly end an evening without announcements? So here we go. For those of you guys who drove here and your cars on site are off-site somewhere as students, just head to the front desk, grab your keys, and we'll have a shuttle ready to take you guys to go get your cars and bring them here. For any parents or grandparents who are on site or friends and guests, check in with the front desk when you're ready to leave, and we'll have shuttles headed out to take you back to the lot where you left your vehicles at. Then for this evening, we'd love to invite all of you guys to come up to the dining room for an ice cream social upstairs. And then at 9:30, we'll have a dance party here in the classroom, so students are all welcome to come back. And then last but not least, you do not have lights out tonight, so. I asked that you guys would be in your rooms at midnight, so still be in your rooms at midnight, but you don't have any lights out. So congratulations, session 5. Thank you to all our guests viewing on the live stream and family in the lobby. Congratulations, well done.